Connecting it a little bit just to Civic Tech here, because we do our projects with data analytics and not everybody's necessarily maybe looking at it from a consumer angle. Is there any recommendations of data sets or processes or even just ways of thinking that you work at Arbor that could be applied to volunteer projects with Civic Tech, or even inspiration for other startups that are early on their journey?
Yeah, honestly, the world of data is huge and like insanely hard to like navigate, quite honestly. Just like advice for kind of how we tackled it. For one, as just mentioned, like all data sources that we look at are like heavily peer reviewed, backed by like super reliable sources, things like that. But I think it's also like we do a ton of internal work to like verify certain like new data sets or anything like that that we're getting. So I think be weary because there's lots out there and it is hard to tell what's true. Another thing is like with insane amounts of data, combining it has been like a huge thing that we've had to navigate. And like our kind of like data team has come up with a super good way to structure it. And so that's been a huge thing that we had to set up kind of in the beginning. And now we can bring in more sources that can like be standardized essentially and go with the ones that we have. But yeah, like in terms of finding them, like we do use a couple public ones, but we also do have some private ones that we use as well. I think using like a combination is also a really good way to make sure that you're like kind of filling in the gaps that one data source could have.
How has been the journey in getting those multiple data sources put together? Because I know one challenge I've seen working in technology is so many companies will just create a giant data lake and pour everything into that one data lake. And the quality of the data lake, usually when you do that, you also get all the sludge in there and it becomes murky. So
Absolutely.
how do you piece together those multiple data structures, and how do you bring about those different sets of data to keep that clear and then be able to communicate that clearly to the consumers that are shopping and seeing your information on the platforms?
Yeah. So like one of the major things we focus on is life cycle assessment data. And so when we knew that was something that we needed because we really wanted to go to the product level, we essentially found multiple different data companies and like heavily looked into each of them. One of the guys on our research team was like meeting with them. It was like a big process to find which one was the right fit for us. We also got a couple like early access from there, which helped us determine which way to go. And then in terms of like finding new data now, it is kind of, as I mentioned, like finding gaps and then finding how we can like essentially fill those gaps. And so our research team like is incredible. They spend as long as needed to look into data and like make sure that we can find what we're looking for and make sure that it is reliable. So I think honestly, just having like a strong team where people can kind of like work together, and a lot of like one of our co-founders is super research oriented, and so he's got some definitely like good tips. I don't know if I can share all of them just because I haven't been fully involved in the whole research process, but yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that answers that there. One thing that just comes to my mind is if there is a company that's approaching you, for example, is there any data or pieces that they should have, or that benefits that they have when they come to you initially? Because I know there might be that exchange, but that might help facilitate the process in companies that might be thinking about working with that type of data.
Yeah, honestly, like in the past, I don't know if there have been any that have approached us. I think it's mainly been us approaching them because we've kind of found what we need and then like figured out what data sets would essentially solve that problem. In terms of what we're looking for right now, though, it is more complicated, and like I do think we move at like a pretty quick pace, but there are so many different things involved in just like the whole life cycle of a product. So I think anywhere that like one of the things with our data right now is we focus on depth, breadth, and precision. And so honestly, if you can help us in any of those areas, like we're always willing to listen anywhere throughout a product life cycle.
Cool. Thank you very much. I think that's all I've got for questions. I didn't see anything else in the
Yeah, I
chat.
just one another question. I'm just wondering. So the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, right, are sort of the global framework for broad consideration of, environmental, economic, and sort of social sustainability. And I'm just curious as to whether you have thought sort of more broadly about the SDGs, because they cover a lot of areas that get into things that may not be clear at the beginning, right? But just an example. So like say, poverty, right? So you could say, well, somebody is using a sweatshop or not using a sweatshop, so it actually has an impact on that SDG, which may not be something that you've considered or appears so far. So is that something you're thinking about, or is it, and how does that relate to your product?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now on our old website, we did a couple different like consumer testing products before we kind of started going in the more B2B route. We like started just like focusing on these products, and our browser extension was one where we used the UN SDG values on there. Like the user can pick their values, and it's all broken down into like categories essentially that fit into exactly what you're talking about. In terms of how it's going to be impacting our product going forward, as just mentioned, like social impact is something that we want to get to. We just want to make sure we nail down the environmental one first. But that being said, like we want to make sure that a customer can look at a t-shirt and know if it was like made in a sweatshop, or like the impact that it had on the employees, and cover kind of all those different things. So I think they're definitely somewhere we want to get to, and like we're working as quickly as we can to cover those things, those social impacts as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's very complicated, and you have to start, sort of start small and kind of build out your product. So that's a great answer. Thanks.
So yeah, stay tuned. Hopefully we can make some big impacts.
I see a hand.
Yeah, Randy, you've got your hand up there.
I do. Thank you. So first of all, I want to say, I'm really impressed with your product. I've been involved in evaluation of different sorts for a large part of my professional career, and it's very difficult to do what you're doing. So, I really am impressed. And the idea of converting it into balloons is really compelling. I also, though, wanted to ask, are you seeing acceptance among what we might think of as more mainstream retailers? I have to say, personally, I was quite distressed when Mountain Equipment Co-op, for example, was sold last year. So I'm wondering, are you seeing, big retailers that are primarily in brick and mortar adopting any of your metrics?
Yeah, so feel free to touch on whatever I missed, but as of recently, we've kind of been starting to work with bigger brands. And so I think definitely we're seeing that there is the need more. Like a lot of successful companies maybe don't necessarily focus as much on sustainability, but that being said too, like there are a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that are the same. So personally, I'm not sure like fully how they compare, but I think everybody could use kind of more sustainability enlightenment and like find ways to improve their current processes.
Yeah, and kind of going off of what Jordan said specifically with the brick and mortar stores, once COVID hit and those were closed for a period of time, a lot of those shops then transitioned into becoming e-commerce platforms and moved into the areas such as Shopify, for example, which is where we're offering like our data as a Shopify plugin. So any of those brick and mortar stores now moving on to an e-commerce platform, Shopify is probably, as I said, one of the most well-known, most used ones out there, can super easily integrate our data into their stores directly. For the bigger box brands, I think I said it in our presentation, Zara and H&M, great examples. I think that they see the need for sustainability. The consumer demand is there. There are incoming government regulations as well. You can see it on their website. I mean, they're greenwashing like crazy. They have their eco collections and they're putting leaves on everything and, like just greenwashing to the max. So it's obvious that they recognize the need for sustainability, but I don't think that they're doing it in a transparent way. They don't have data to back up any of their claims. So I think they recognize the need for it. And I imagine they will be looking for platforms like ourselves to actually back up those claims, because like the UK Green Code, for example, they are calling out stores for greenwashing claims and hitting them with huge fines if they're doing so. So the need is definitely out there, and I definitely see the transition for those bigger brands, as you said, to start looking into sustainability data metrics, like the hardcore facts that they can show their consumers. As I said, they're actually walking the walk as opposed to just, talking the talk. That answers your question.
Excellent. It does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for your question there, Randy. Last chance for any questions in the live time here, if anyone wants to get them in. Lisa?
Sorry, everybody. I'm getting over a cold. I don't have a question. I really just want to thank you for your presentation. It was really great to learn so many things that I thought I knew about, being more sustainable, but also that depiction of the balloons. It really helped me to visualize what happens with that. And I think that was really clever when you're thinking about how you're presenting this information. So I really just wanted to say thank you, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. That is very much appreciated.
It's nice to hear.
All right, I'm seeing some celebration emojis going on there. That's all we've got for live time there. Really echo that as well. Thank you very much, Jessica and Jordan, for all the information. And it's going to be interesting to see how sustainability ends up being woven into business with all the data metrics going forward into the future there.
Absolutely. I'm also just going to drop my email into the chat bar if anyone has any questions, or they just want to stay in touch or keep the sustainability conversation going.
Feedback,
anything. Yep, that's in the bar there for you. So.
Yeah, and for anyone listening on the recording there, it's Jessica at arbordb.co. Again, thank you very much, and yeah, we'll just get into the casual chat time here. And for anyone else on the recording, check us out at CivicTechYYC and any of the future events that we'll be hosting.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again so much for having us. It's been our pleasure.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much.